Ammar, we're back for one final race of 2025.
For now, right?
For now, yeah. And we're here partly, at least, to celebrate um, Lando Norris winning the 2025 Formula One World
Mm.
Championship and McLaren winning their first championship double since 1998. And I do want you to cast your mind back to that heady year of 1998. Because in the first race of 1998, Mika Hakkinen and David Coulthard were the incumbent McLaren drivers. And during that race, Mika Hakkinen inadvertently, completely inexplicably decided to wander into the pit lane for nothing and then just drove straight out again, allowing his teammate to overtake him. You might call that Mika's own mistake. And what did McLaren under Ron Dennis do? They told David Coulthard to give the position back.
Wow.
The papaya prototype is all I can call that. But anyway,
And here you were blaming Zach.
So. Anyway, we're not here to talk about
really,
about
we're not.
1998.
Oh, okay. Who would have guessed?
But actually, before we even start, Yazza, hello, mate. Thank you for opening the account straight away. Does Adami need to go? Did you hear him and Lewis? If you didn't, it was pretty awkward. Lewis did his customary end of season over the radio speech where he tells everyone how happy he is to be driving for the team that he's driving for and how he'd give anything for them, and your life is in my hands, people. And it would have been awesome. It would have been so touching, so heartfelt, would have brought a tear to your eye. And it would have done if Adami had been listening. But he said, sorry, what? Oh, sorry, we're talking. Yeah, we love you too, man. Yeah, grazie. Bye. 2025 out. And that kind of summed up, I think, Lewis and Ricky Adami's relationship in 2025. Does he need to go? I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that right now. Ammar,
I think the radio message. I don't know if he needs to go or not, right? But the radio message is the best dismount that there could have been on this Lewis Hamilton Ferrari partnership season. Like that is the perfect way. If you saw nothing Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton related throughout the year, that just essentially captures what the season has been. And I think it's fine. It's hysterical. It's painful. It's cringeworthy. It's all of it all at once. So I would just say, I mean, those of you that are asking for this stuff, I'm here to tell you, and I told you this at the start of the season, that this is what you would expect. And I don't know if, I think Lewis Hamilton fans that are upset, and we'll talk about this another time, Shez, so we need to get back on business. But Lewis Hamilton fans that are upset have only themselves to blame, because this is what we have been dealing with for years now. And you're just coming right now. And if you thought that the pixie dust from Lewis Hamilton would somehow sort of cure all Ferrari ailments, it ain't happening. So there's that. But we should move on. We should not do this, Shez. Come on. Let's be proud of what Lando did, man. Come on.
So yeah,
let's go.
Let's do that. Lando Norris is now officially, well, he's not officially, it's not official until the gala, isn't it?
It's official. Come on, man. There's nobody fighting it out.
Officially, it's not official until the gala. It's just, I don't make the rules.
Is there a DSQ coming? Is that what you're saying? Or
I think that would be a travesty right now. But anyway, so Lando Norris is now the 2025 F1 World Champion. And look, I'm not going to shy away from it. I have been massively critical of him all season long. It doesn't end today, but I think we do need to celebrate him a little bit. Ammar, because you've been a lifelong Lando fan.
How hard is it for you?
Because you've been a lifelong Lando fan. Why don't you kick us off? Tell me why you're happy and how happy you are.
Yes. First of all, shame on you for not being able to even say those sentences correctly. Like, you can rattle off what happened in the 1998, 2008, 1957 season, yet you have such a hard time doing this, Shez. And this is exactly what I'm here for today. Look, I am a lifelong Ferrari fan. Look at the car behind me. And those of you that have been with us long enough know this. But you know what? Lando the deserving champion that he has become. And I, for one, was really happy for him. I too was. I never thought I would be emotional around Lando winning the race, but I could kind of feel what he was feeling, and this is exactly why you love sport. This is exactly what it's all about. And him winning, his radio messages, the team interaction, the family interactions, it felt like a giant weight lifted off their shoulders. And we've seen examples of that throughout sport. This is why we love sport. So if you're a neutral fan today, if you kind of can kind of put aside your favorites, whoever they might be, including Max, by the way, it was pretty cool. And Lando Norris is very deserving, Shez, because I'm reminded of the time when he first joined McLaren, where they were dead set a midfield, or maybe even not even just that, right? And I remember, was it the 2020 season, or maybe it was 2021? When he started, it would have been 2020 because Sochi happened in 2020, 2019. Sochi was 21. It was after COVID. Okay, whatever. Yeah, 21. Yes, that's when there was rain in Sochi, and then Lewis Hamilton passed him and all of that, right? We remember remarking that he had an amazing season, right? What I loved more about Lando winning the race yesterday is not the race itself; it's his debrief after. Which, if you, sorry, okay, man, he winning the championship, Shez. Wow, here you could tell that you can't handle any praise for Lando. Okay, fine, fair enough. Yes, they can't hear you. They can't hear you guys, but Shez is correcting me in the background. So after Lando came P3 yesterday, and he won the championship, what was really amazing was his press conference, which he stayed back and did his own driver's press briefing after Oscar and Max had left. And he spent about a good 25-30 minutes. And really, there were so many assumptions we made about his season that he went on to clarify, as Lando has always been transparent and been wanting to kind of lay out his heart as how he's felt, right? And he said that after what had happened in Zandvoort, people thought that everything became a lot more easier for me because I had nothing to lose. Yada yada yada. That was sort of the perception. Well, actually, I went back and did even more work. I added more people on my team. I started to get more involved in how the car works and how I could be better. And that was just amazing for me. I mean, this is exactly why you watch sport. No, you see these athletes that go through all kinds of challenges in life and on track and even on track, off track for many of them, right? And how they overcome it. So he gave us an excellent story of how his comeback happened. And I get that some of us are wanting to do the lazy papaya rules, and what if Max hadn't rammed into George in Spain and blah blah blah. We want to do all of that, but the reality is that Lando drove his best season to date, and yes, he has probably said some quirky things and some distasteful things. Even he admitted to it in the press conference. But he really is a good guy, and I am not. He's not my favorite. I'm not running to the fences for cheering Lando by any stretch of the imagination, but I have to tell you, he did impress me a lot, and I'm really happy that he won this championship, and he very well deserved as well. So Shez, you can stop being my producer now and kind of come back live.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, it's nice. Look, I
you know how hard it is to speak when there's someone constantly in your ear.
Yeah, I was reading. This is a complete tangent, but I was reading Ted Kravitz's book, and he was talking about the first few seasons he was in Formula One. He was sat in the commentary box with Murray Walker and Martin Brundle, and Murray would be in full flow, like getting all the drivers wrong and stuff, right? And someone needed to tell him, "Look, mate, you got that driver wrong." So Ted would be in his ear saying, "Murray, you need to stop, man. Like that was."
Yeah, but Shez, sometimes you need to understand the difference between what's. Yeah, but you need to understand the difference between what's important and what's trivial, right? Like it didn't have to be made a correction, but there we go. Anyway, here we are.
This is an insight into how Ammar and I like live and work. I love you, man, but sometimes you.
I love you too, man.
Sometimes we need correcting. Look, I actually don't disagree with any of that. I think actually the really positive things about Lando Norris are how he came across in that press conference. I think how he has come across post race, post championship, have done a huge amount of heavy lifting for his reputation. Suddenly, everybody has come away from Yas Marino going, "This guy is amazing. He's exactly what Formula One needs. He's a different kind of champion." And you know what? I'm here for it. I want to see a driver that wears their heart on their sleeve, isn't afraid to admit when they're vulnerable, talks about the challenges that they've had to face coming up, because that speaks to all of us. We all have to live these challenges, and I love that he's come out and said all that. So that's a massive, massive plus for me, in the plus column for Lando. I love it. I also think
There's a but coming.
no. I also think that he has, from a performance point of view, also done champion level things. It's not for everyone to be given a car, go, I don't like it, identify what it is they need, and then lobby the team to go and do it. And he did that. He said, look, for 6 seasons, I've not felt the front of the car. And they really hadn't listened to him because he was absolutely walloping everybody that was coming at him. Well, he wasn't walloping Carlos Sainz in their first season together, but he was walloping Daniel Ricciardo. Pretty much ended that guy's career. And now Oscar's turned up and is doing better and is getting more pace out of it. And Lando recognized the reason why that was happening and lobbied his team to do something about it. That's champion level stuff. And it brought tangible results to his side of the garage. I have to give him kudos for that. It's really impressive, especially because it wasn't what happened on the other side of the garage. And the third thing is loyalty. Like, when you talk about the absolute greats, you talk about Michael Schumacher, you talk about Lewis Hamilton, you talk about Max Verstappen. They turned up at teams and made those teams their own. They built an aura around them. They built, as you said, Ammar, a team around them that allowed the team itself to grow and allowed them to grow with it. And that really has been the story of Lando Norris and McLaren. As McLaren have grown, Lando Norris has grown with them in step. And he's here now to reap the rewards of that. And he could have gone. He could have taken the easy way out and said, all right, fine, Red Bull want me. They have a race winning car. I could go there right now. I don't need this. But he didn't. He did the difficult thing and stayed at McLaren, repaid their loyalty, and got his just rewards at the end of it. So I do think he deserves this championship. I do think he's a worthy world champion, but it doesn't mean I can't criticize him. And the next bit of this is
Not today.
why not?
All right, go ahead. Let's see what you got. Let's see.
But the caveat, the downside to it, and we can come back to it later if you want, because we do have Max and Oscar to talk about. We can talk about them first if you like. I don't mind.
Doesn't matter. Let's go. Keep going. You teased it now. Come on, let's go.
No, you know what? I think you're right. I think you're right. I'm already being too harsh on Orlando. But we are going to come back to it, because I think that
Well,
that what we expect from Lando in the coming seasons definitely has something to do with how he has performed this year. We should talk about it.
how old is Lando, Shez?
26.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long way to go.
So yeah, okay. So that's a good segue, because you know who else was 26 when they won their first world championship?
Max
Verstappen. And really, was there anybody anywhere with any decent kind of understanding of the sport that was even questioning whether or not Max Verstappen was a deserving world champion? Let's forget about what happened in Abu Dhabi 2021, right? Just park that for a second. The entirety of that season, was there anybody that really questioned that in 2021?
I'm sure there are people on social media questioning that too, for a variety of reasons. I mean, throughout the season, that was a unusual season, not just because. Well, I would say that was an unusual season, not on track necessarily, but there was just a lot happening. There was Christian Horner and Toto Wolff going, and there was Drive to Survive. I would say that season is sort of a standalone, not because of how AD21 turned out, but just the whole season was, a gigantic drama, really. And I think that affects people. And we forget again that these drivers are just human beings at the end of the day. They have feelings, they have emotions, they have all the things that you and I have, Shez. So I don't know.
But yeah, and look, I agree with that, but there was a difference.
That's why I
in
don't
that.
like comparisons. That's all I was trying to say.
We have to compare. That's what we're here for. But there's a difference in that season. That those two drivers elevated themselves above everybody else, like by miles. They were miles ahead of everybody else. And, but there was no question
I mean,
about
these three were miles above everybody else
there's
too.
no
So.
well, really, because
I mean, like, they're all separated by 15 points.
Yeah, sure, so. But it's not just about points; it's about individual performances. And I think that even on a weekend, on a Grand Prix like Abu Dhabi, I would score Charles Leclerc higher than the two McLaren drivers. That doesn't mean that he was in the championship. So that has got something to do with it. And I think Max, we have to talk about him because he was the other major contributor to this title battle, not in a McLaren. I'm going to let you go first. What were your impressions when you heard Max come across the line and finished winning the race?
Nothing. I didn't have much of an expression. I know that there are folks in the Max community that have come up with all kinds of silliness. And to them, I say, act like you've been there. But in reality, I did not feel bad or good about that because I thought in the end, Max ended up exactly where he should have ended up. It was a season filled with highs and lows. They had quite a low in the middle of the season, and that got them. So I think I felt mostly like him in that I felt happy in this. Well, I just said I don't feel anything, but I felt happy from the standpoint of it gave us fans a chance to watch Formula One for the second part of the season and beyond, or at least the last third of the season, right? We probably wouldn't have watched much of it quite this way had Max not been in the mix. So from an audience standpoint, I just felt great. But for him himself, I thought this was probably his best season in terms of how he drove, where he brought the team back from. I'm not so much sort of starry-eyed by the wins and all of the things that many people are sort of putting out there. I think his greatest win this season was not the fact that he won more races, but had he made Red Bull his team essentially through the exit of Christian Horner, and that really started their revival because Red Bull continued to develop the car much further into the season compared to McLaren did because McLaren had such a great head start and they knew they were going to pay the price for it in terms of wind tunnel and testing for next year. They gave up on developing the car. So some of Max's win are also contributed by the fact that McLaren stopped developing the car. I'm not saying that makes his wins any less important or discredits them. I'm just saying that that's also a fact of the season, that Red Bull came back and developed the car aggressively, largely because they had fumbled their way, but they found their way, and they found their way through Max Verstappen. He was the catalyst for it. And so for me, that's the bigger win than actually winning the championship. I don't know how, honestly, Shez, had Max won the championship, I would have felt less emotion about him being a 5-time champion, and I would have felt worse. I would have felt more emotion, rather, about McLaren losing the one, because I think by consensus, we can all agree that this was McLaren's championship, both championships to lose. And that's what we would have been talking about right now, not necessarily Max being a 5-time champion. So with that, I felt great about his season as a whole, but I didn't feel anywhere or another. I didn't think they were going to do all these silly things, and I think McLaren kind of took their hand away too in that regard. But yeah, we can talk more about that as well.
Yeah. Look, I don't disagree at all. I think Max had an almost perfect season. There was probably two single points where he could have done something different that were in his control that might have got him some points. But that I think is a marker of how good Max's season was in the face of a car that in his own team was underdeveloped or incorrectly heading in the wrong direction, rudderless even from a technical point of view. And I agree with you. I think that once Christian Horner left, and I don't want to read too much in that because I do think that a lot of what happened towards the end of the season was started under Christian Horner. That these things don't happen within a week of somebody leaving. That's not how this works. But the way that he catalyzed the team around him, gave them a purpose, gave them a focus. And this is what you heard from members of the team throughout the year, wasn't it? That the real driving force was that Max was always so upbeat, and you could see the passion in that in the response that the team had at the end. Giampiero Lambiasi was absolutely distraught afterwards, and there are multiple reasons for why that might be, but at least one of those has to be the amount of effort, time, um, emotion that's been expended in giving Max the best shot possible at doing it, at winning this title. And I think Max has repaid that with his 8 wins and more poles than anybody else um, on the grid this year. Go on.
Shaz, I was going to ask you, right? I mean, because it bears mentioning that when there were rumors about Max going to Mercedes, right? Part of the reason why we thought he might leave was that Red Bull felt like a team, at least structurally, that was in shambles, right? And I think Helmut Marko is retiring now. At least that's been sort of a rumor. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not as of us speaking right now, but the reality is this is now his team. And I was going to ask you if you thought you see him leaving Red Bull. Like, I don't see him necessarily leaving Red Bull if they're somewhat competitive next year. I mean, I know that the big question mark is what are their power units going to look like, but if they're halfway competitive, man, I don't know that you'd get a better setup than Red Bull if you're Max Verstappen, because even a team like Mercedes will not give you some of the things that he can. And this is his team by every stretch of the well, there's no more imagination, by every stretch of reality, really.
But the problem they're going to have is that Max wants a competitive car, right?
Yeah.
He was only happy when he started to really win races regularly. Once he started to do that, suddenly Max was even more relaxed, even more happy, and you could really start to see the top level Max come out. The problem with next season and seasons beyond is that the reason that's happened this year is because the team have, by their own admission, sacrificed a little bit of time and resource for 2026 on the 2025 car. And it's given us a vintage Max Verstappen season, but it's not given them a world title. So Max came on the radio at the end of that race, and that those are the words that made me like well up a little bit, because I thought his team needed a pickup after that. They put everything into him winning the championship, and he turned around and he said, "Look, we didn't win, but I'm proud of every single one of you." I'm tearing up a little bit just thinking about it now. That's the kind of pep talk that I need to hear sometimes. It doesn't matter that we didn't win. This group is amazing, but the problem is that they have spent so much on this season that you can only feel that the reason they were doing that is because they didn't have a huge amount of hope for next season.
For
And,
next
and,
year,
and it
right?
becomes a vicious cycle, doesn't it? That they didn't have hope, so they don't expend as much on 2026, and therefore they have less for 2026. And 26 is a big season for them. I just don't see that powertrain, the Red Bull Ford powertrain, being a market leading power unit, not in its first season. It's just, you saw how much Ferrari and Renault and Honda struggled in their first seasons of a new rule set. It's almost inconceivable to expect the Red Bull power units are going to be up and running straight away. And on top of that, as much as Pierre Vacher et al. Have lifted their game, they're still lifting their game on what was essentially an Adrian Newey based design from 2022. Now they're going to have to do all of that on their own. So the entire aero department have got a huge amount of pressure on their shoulders. And there's a big part of me that feels like 2025 was the last big hurrah for Red Bull as we know it, and it's going to take some doing to keep Max there for 2027, because I just don't think they have the same resource next year, and that again is a reason for me to feel not sad. I don't feel sad, because I do think that Max gave it everything. We saw everything that Max had in this season, but because the end result wasn't there, it might be a while before that team, Red Bull, get another result.
So I mean, I see your point, Shez, but I don't necessarily agree because we still have to wait and see what next season looks like, right? And maybe he is not an outright contender for a championship right away. But I mean, I also feel like Red Bull have proven to us that they have the capability far more than, let's say, a Ferrari does to develop a car through the season. And we saw that happen in 2022. Although, of course, I would agree with you that with Adrian Newey there, that might have been a heck of a lot easier than for them to do it without him. But the team have certainly shown the ability by developing the car this season, and that they can put some distance between themselves and the next competitor. So, and it's also, I mean, you just don't know what the new rule set will look like. And we all believe that the Mercedes power unit will be league leading, but that's not everything. That's only half the battle. There'll be a lot of aerodynamic stuff that will be involved as well, right? So who knows? And then I would just say that if Max is an integral part of Red Bull in these developments that happen not just before the season but throughout the season, can we rule him out as being the one of the ways that Red Bull kind of finds itself back in the mix? Not necessarily, right? We would all say that Max can be part of the equation that brings them into the mix, and we'll just have to wait and see what that looks like. But I was just going to say the way he spoke, as you said, on the radio afterwards, really, I mean, we talk about how people hate Lando, right? I mean, it was not too long ago that people hated Max for a different flavor of reasons, right? His way of addressing the media at times. He was not saying the exact same things that Lando was saying. His body language was different, but again, it was a different flavor of the same ice cream, essentially, right? And it's amazing to hear Max on the radio now. He's like the elder statesman. He's like sounding like a true dad in that he's like patting people on the back through his words and saying, you know what, yeah, we made an absolute run. And then even his press conference in the end, Shez, I mean, to have that introspection and that perspective, right? To say, look, I certainly have made mistakes too, but I got a bunch of early Christmas gifts. These are his words, right? Acknowledging the fact that they probably wouldn't have been here had it not been for a couple things that I think that just sort of fell in his lap too. So when he can acknowledge that, I feel that the rest of us should be able to acknowledge that too. So all in all, it's a great season. I mean, I think in the end, nobody remembers. Well, very few people remember who the number two person was, but for some reason, I feel like we're gonna remember this P2 from Max for a while.
Yeah, I think in just the same way that we remember Fernando's 2012 second place,
Sure.
right? But
Sure, and Massa's second place too,
and
Lewis's second place from 21 too. Yeah, sure.
You remember that? Um,
Yeah.
but but the difference here was that actually Max demonstrated some delight at the end of that. Like he didn't seem downbeat. He genuinely seemed happy. I saw Rachel Brooks asking him about how he felt about Lando's win, and before she even finished asking the question, Max had a massive smile on his face, like he was just ready to talk about his mate winning the world championship. I think that also opens up a little bit of a window into Max, because I do think that if that had been a Charles or a George in a more closely fought battle, I'm not sure you would have seen the same Max.
Well,
I mean, you can come in on this as
it's just
well
that's
you
the
want,
beauty
but
of having won four, also, right? When you've won four, it's a different
no,
thing.
but I think it's separate to that, because I think that he would have been. I think with Lando, I think he feels like he's got Lando's number, like guaranteed. I think he probably still thinks he's got Charles and George's number as well, but there's a bit more of a question mark over that from us. But certainly Lando, I think he's got his number. He was happy to have him come to his team, happy for him to be in the other car, and now he's like, yeah, I mean, you won the championship, but you didn't win it because you were better than I was. You won it because you had a better car than I did.
Sure.
And I think he can be happy about his mate winning it, because in the back of his mind, not even in the back of his mind, I think front and center of his mind, he's like, I did everything I could and I was awesome this year. I won more races than he did. I got more pole positions than he did. And but for one or two little moments of slackness on my part, I would have had this championship.
Oh,
you would,
I know what you're trying to do there.
and you would have had egg on your face. And that and he has that confidence
Yeah.
when it comes to Lando, I think. I think
Yeah, sure.
I
I
think
mean,
I, I
I'm
think
sure
if you
every driver, whether they say it or not, they have that level of confidence. I mean, I think all 20 guys would tell you, put me in a race winning car and I can win. I mean, these guys do something that only 20 of them or 22
yeah,
from
no, I
next
agree
year
with
can
that.
do. So you have to have unbelievable level of delusional confidence. And most and the great ones prove themselves right by separating themselves from the pack. But that's kind of how it is, really.
Yeah, yes, but I think there's a particular thing here about Max and Lando. Yes, I'm hearing everybody in the comments. Yes, they are friends, but you have to ask yourself why they're friends as well. You're not friends with somebody that you're super competitive with. Just look at Lewis and Nico Rosberg. They were best mates
Oh, you are now doing this. I mean, this
until they
is a
were suddenly
generational
in
thing,
a
Shez.
yeah,
It's a
maybe,
generational thing. Yeah.
yeah, maybe,
I mean,
maybe, but you haven't seen George and Charles go, or George and Lando go up in for a championship together. George is also very magnanimous, but he wasn't in the championship fight. He even mentioned in his interview, "Oh yeah, if I was a bit younger, I would have been envious." But that to me tells me that he is envious. But put them in a championship fight, that demeanor isn't the same. Not in the same way
well,
that
but I mean,
Max's was for
again,
Lando.
yeah, but this is at the end of it, right? Once the season is done, once the helmet's off, it's fine to be friends. I mean, I get it. I mean, these analogies have been given throughout other sports too, where it's like back in my day, we would not even shake hands, or we're not like, okay, yeah, come on, now, that's fine. It is what it is.
Oh, that's on
It's
principle, but
okay,
I'm
and
talking about in terms of actually look.
but they're friends. They've been friends before
Yeah,
Max became a champion. They've been friends after Lando's
yeah.
because so
But
it's not like they just
but
developed
but are
friendship. I
you
mean, it's the same way he treats Kimi Antonelli too. Look
yeah?
at
But
that.
Ammar, are you telling me that if there had been more races like Austria, right, last year, um, do you think that they would still that response would have been quite as chummy as it was?
I think it would have been. I think it would have been because,
I'm not. I don't agree with
again,
that.
this tells you a lot about where Max is at. He is now he is a four-time champion.
Hmm.
He is. I won't call him an elder statesman because he's still in his prime, but he is much, older than all of these young guys that are hungry, that are waiting. And so he knows. And you're right. Maybe to some extent, this is playing the psychological battle too. But I think you can also just be friends, right? I mean, again, Shez, there's only 20 people in the world that know how difficult their jobs are, right? So I think in every sports community, in every walk of life in general, you tend to relate to people who kind of do the same thing, and because you can feel their pain, you can feel their challenges, you can see them overcome. And yes, at the end of the day, you want to be the one who's at the top, but that doesn't mean you can't, walk and chew gum at the same time. I think both things can be true.
Sure, maybe. Yeah, I'm not. I'm
It.
probably not going to change my mind about this. I think Max just knows whose number he absolutely has and whose
Also,
number.
Lando's dad is rich. So.
Yes, but I feel like Max.
There's always that.
I feel like Max is quite.
Since you're wanting to
rich
get
on his
reckless,
own.
I'm going to get there.
All right. Can we talk about Oscar?
Let's talk about
Oscar.
Oscar. Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Go on. You've gone first for all the others.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would just say, I mean, I know you're the resident Oscar fan here. I just say that he put together an amazing season. I know that it's sort of easy to be prisoner of the moment and say, look, he choked or whatever, right? I mean, I've seen a lot of people say that on social media. That's kind of crazy. The idea that either he choked or McLaren actively sort of buffed him out, like that's crazy. Look, guys, Lando has been with the team since they were irrelevant. There's going to be a natural bias for him. That is going to happen. That's just human nature. Somebody who has been with you through thick and thin, and mostly thin for the 6 seasons that he's been there, they're going to have a natural feeling towards it. But Oscar, it's his 3rd full year, no Shez, right? He has put together an amazing season where he was a championship leader for most of the season. He couldn't hang on to it. Some of it has to do with issues that are sort of beyond his control, aka papaya rules. But even he admitted to the fact that there's a lot more he can do to get better with the car, to be able to drive on different tracks, aka slippery tracks, right? He said this himself. So I'm not making stuff up here, guys. This is stuff that he has also talked about. And I think he's ready to be champion. I mean, I think that if McLaren are in the mix next year, I think Piastri will be there. It will be there, right there, and be able to win. And look, he's improved drastically from last year to this year. Last year, we said that if Oscar could just do a little bit better in qualifying, he would be a lot better over the course of a race, and he's done that this year, and that he's proven that he's at the level with Lando. And even he said that despite the fact that Lando won this year, that doesn't necessarily put him in a different category. He still believes that he has a chance, and that's all I wanted to see. The thing that hurt me the most about the way the Qatar Grand Prix played out is that I really wanted to see Oscar win, even if he wasn't going to win the championship, right? But I think on this occasion in Abu Dhabi, they did the right thing as a team, and I think he did the right thing. He tried to go back out and win the race, but it just wasn't meant to be, and that's sort of what it is. But heck of a season put together by him. Very classy of him to go over to Lando's family and congratulate them, and vice versa. And I think both of them, I feel like, get along. And this, honestly, Shez, looking at the drivers' reaction, particularly Oscar's at the end of the race, really made me feel a lot better about what McLaren have got. Because I mean, had this gone south, we'd have been talking about breaking up this partnership. But I think for whatever reason now they're going to be in good shape for next year, and we'll see what next year looks like. I mean, everything is only in the moment, but you know.
I mean, I think there's quite a lot to break down there, though. Like, I mean, just to answer that first question first, the fact that they appear to get along. Well, I mean, I think the problem that both drivers have is that most of the big seats at the top teams are already taken, or are vacant, or are potentially vacant for a particular driver.
Ferrari.
So yeah, well, Ferrari's. I'm not counting Ferrari as one of those top
saying,
teams.
I'm just saying, yeah. I don't,
you know what I mean?
But, yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's one of those. It's one of those things where, like, if they didn't get along and they got chucked out, where the heck are they going to go? They're not going to get as good a chance of winning a world championship in any other team other than at McLaren. Like Mercedes aren't going to take them when they've got George and Kimi. Red Bull might take them, but they might also be a spent force. Same with Ferrari, unfortunately. I'm really sorry. And Aston's the only other one. And again, are they going to take a Lando over a Max or a Charles? I don't think so. So their options outside of McLaren become a little bit more blunted. Just for Oscar specifically, look, I don't know what people are talking about, not generational. I don't even know what that means until somebody does something generational for you to base that on. But Oscar has had what I think is a great season, especially for someone who's in their third year coming into a team that is essentially owned by Lando Norris. Like, as we've just said, he has grown with the team. You can't have one argument without the other. So Oscar has done brilliantly well. The things that I was most surprised by were that I didn't think that you could generate more pace out of a Formula One driver, and yet he was able to do that in tracks where he underperformed last year. He beat the field this year. Bahrain and China are really good examples of that. His problem, I think, his problem in terms of outcome, what we could see on track, was that when he dipped much lower than Lando. When Lando had that engine failure at Zandvoort, all Oscar needed to do really was pick off the odd win here or there. Qatar would have been a given now that we've looked at it, and he probably could have come out ahead in Abu Dhabi as well. All he had to do was just keep his head together, not put it in the wall, not do silly things. And unfortunately, maybe it was, and I still think that there was an element of how the team functioned that affected him mentally that led to some of the stuff that happened. But that's on him. Like, he also has to be able to deal with the mental side of Formula One and not let it get to him. So, like, I accept that, but it just meant that his dip, his nadir, was miles lower than anything that Lando suffered in the first 2/3 of the season when Oscar was showing him the way, and that ultimately cost him. But if there's a real reason why I think Oscar didn't get the result that he wanted, I think it's because of the incumbency one that Lando has in the team and the confidence that he has to be able to tell the team what he wants and what he needs. Oscar, for whatever reason, when he was ahead, didn't do that. He didn't say to the team, "I want more. I need this from the car." He seemed too happy to be like I've got what I need. I don't need any more. Where the guy on the other side of the garage was saying, I need this, give this to me. And I wonder if his management, and I'm talking about Mark Webber, was really good at getting him into the position that he's in now. But this is where Mark's level ends in terms of the advice that he can give him, because he hasn't experienced what to do any further, and he's making it up as he goes along. And what Oscar, I think, needed to do was push the team to do what he wanted to do when he had the agency to do it, and he didn't. And I think that's cost him ultimately. I hope he learns. I just hope it's not too. Yeah, but I just hope it's not too late for him, because that will come back.
Yes, it's not too late. How old is Oscar? He's like 23, 24.
But it's not just about age, man. It's about what Lando can do in that car in the seasons to come. And I think that really has to be the next point of conversation, which is what happens in 2026 and onwards. And I'm going to ask you a straight question. What kind of champion is Lando going to be? Option A, he's going to be somebody that kicks on from here and gets better and better and better with the confidence that comes from being a world champion. Or is he a driver that has that world championship in his pocket and then regresses back to wondering if he did it because he was lucky, and this is the height of Lando Norris's achievement.
Which, as the good old saying goes, fortune favors the brave. So I wouldn't put him down as lucky, but I pick option A for the simple reason that at the beginning of the season, I told you that Lando Norris would become a world champion if McLaren has a dominant car. And that was because he learned a lot from going up against Max last year. All of the things that he went through against Max and got beat by him several times in several different ways. How many times did we come on here and criticize him for the moves he made, where even though Max got a penalty, we felt like, wow, Lando could have done a much better job of just getting the overtake done, or not being in his head and all of that. It just so turns out that this season, I don't think there were a whole lot of Max versus Lando moments. And I think even those few moments, probably Max got the better of him. But what Lando did realize as a result of chasing Max unsuccessfully at last year is that him and the team got mostly better, with a couple of egregious errors there, mostly better at being able to handle the demands of a season in a way that, look, at the end of the day, their margin was just 2 points. So I'm not going to go ahead and say, wow, they've mastered the whole thing, but they did just about enough collectively to be able to win. And so, given what I said at the beginning of this year, the progression has come from Lando, and so I fully believe that he will come back and be even better next year, having had that first championship weight lifted off their shoulders. And this was very true in all the emotion you saw from him, from Zach Brown, from Stella. It was like a giant weight off their shoulder. I think he'll be much better. He will be much better next year. That doesn't mean he's a guaranteed shoe-in for a championship or winning one, but I think he will be right there, assuming McLaren has the car to compete with.
Ammar, you know what? I think you're right. I think he actually will be better next season. I don't agree with your he learned from Max, because even
experience,
even up to the last 2 or 3 races, as soon as Max Verstappen was alongside him, Lando suddenly forgot how to start.
I mean, Qatar was not. You're being unfair, man. Everyone that was Qatar, on the other side, they were going to be. Okay, I mean, I didn't say he was. He had.
And in Qatar, actually, forget the start. The rest of his race was also, as soon as he was behind, his head dropped and he started to lack pace.
But that's because the McLaren struggled when we. Okay, anyway,
because it didn't happen to Oscar, did it?
That. Fine.
But anyways, and
I'm going to let you finish.
And I guess that's my sort of one small worry, that I don't think he completely resolved that little conundrum. How do I handle specifically Max? If he didn't have Max alongside him, you had a Mexico off the start, you had a Brazil off the start, and he was imperious. There was nobody better. Do you know who he reminded me of in those races? You can unmute or not, it doesn't matter, I'm going to answer anyway. Sebastian Vettel. And this season reminds me quite a lot of Vettel. Now, everyone kind of made out that it's not like 2010 because Vettel wasn't leading the championship until the final corner of Abu Dhabi. But I would argue that actually Lando is that guy. He was the guy that actually was was behind for most of the season, and like Mark Webber in 2010, Oscar Piastri, irony of ironies, was the guy that we all thought was going to win the championship if you were following it for most of the season.
Mm-hmm.
But then Lando came from behind and suddenly puts in a spate of unbelievable performances, all very similar performances, and wins the championship at the last race in Abu Dhabi. And I think that's a good template for him. I think for his level of driver, someone who is exquisitely fast. And if you listen to anybody else that talked about him um, from the drivers in the post race presser, all of them to a man said pace is not an issue for Lando. He's up there as the fastest of all of us. He can be. But it always seems to come with a bit of a caveat that the stars have to align for him a little bit. The conditions have to be correct. McLaren seemed to find what those conditions were and gave that to him, along with him asking for it towards the end of the season. And if he can maintain that next year and put in performances like Mexico, like Brazil, even like Kota, actually, then I think he kicks on. But he has a very Sebastian Vettel like career. And that unfortunately comes also with the slight doubt from people that he's not on the same level as some of his peers. I don't think Sebastian Vettel ever shook that, even when he moved to Ferrari and was in a different team. Although I don't think he actually did very well at Ferrari, given the machinations that occur there. But I think that's the career that Lando Norris could have, and it would be a great career. Having 4 championships based on the back of a cohesion with his team, I think is not just perfectly reasonable. I think it's a career that many drivers would kill for. But Ammar, and this is kind of the difficulty, is that as we get into 2026 and 2027 onwards, McLaren won't necessarily have it their own way. If what we hear is true, that Mercedes are going to have a power unit to end all power units, and that's in the back of the works team, suddenly unleashed, unshackled from the errors of their ground effect era, and you have McLaren with the might of that Mercedes power unit and Rob Marshall in there showing them the way with the aero. And then on top of that, you've got a resurgent Williams. And then you've got Aston Martin with a potential rocket ship under Adrian Newey and a brand new Honda power unit. Will Lando necessarily be afforded that? Will George Russell and Charles Leclerc, if Ferrari somehow get it together, will they let him do that?
I think they will. I think one of the things
you think they will? Do you think that he will be able to just drive away from George Russell? And
what
Charles
do you mean
Leclerc?
they? I thought you meant McLaren. Okay.
No. I'm asking you in terms of the other drivers that may well be in contention.
Do you think? No. I mean, we're talking about competition.
Yeah. I'm not talking about other teams. I'm talking about.
Yeah. No. I don't think so. Look, I think next year's we don't know what next year is going to be like. If we're going to be perfectly candid, we don't know. Who will. What we saw this year was something that happened at the end of a rule set where both cars and drivers have maximized the regulations, right? That's why you're seeing Max rise to the top in the way that he is. It's just not down to his sort of genius ability in the car, but it's understanding the big picture and being able to make things work according to him. And that's what kind of showed up in the results too. It's the same thing for the team. Next year, if let's just say, to your question, let's just say that if McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, oh God, I can't believe we're saying this. Don't jinx the team, Shez. Please don't jinx the team. And that would put Alpine in the mix too, no? Alpine and Williams in the mix too. If Mercedes have this unit. We don't know. There might be a surprise team, and there's on paper there's probably outside of Haas, right? Haas and Cadillac, and Sauber, Audi, who Audi have pretty much said that that's not their year. Maybe outside of 3 teams, there's probably like 8 or 9 teams in the mix. If you could really make a case for. It's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be difficult. So I think that to answer your question, if the other teams are competitive, then Lando's going to have to bring in a level of a game that we have not seen yet.
Correct.
Do I believe that he can
Correct.
bring that? I absolutely can.
Okay.
And look, you're right. I mean, this season he had better starts without Max there. He may not have Max next year. To your earlier point, Red Bull may not even be in the mix. And Red Bull is the biggest wild card because we just have absolutely no idea how they're going to do one way or another. So they could be the ones running away with it, or they could be nowhere to be found. And so if that's the case, Shez, then I think Lando's going to feel like he's got a better chance against the people who have not won even a single championship. Max is a different entity altogether, but I think that everyone else is fair game, in my opinion.
Well, he did pull off that lovely overtaking move on Charles Leclerc at Spain, didn't he?
Sure.
And it was a very nice move. So, but again, I think Charles is just very, very polite, polite but assertive. When it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing, I really like.
I'm not biting, Shez. I'm not going to bite.
You don't have to.
Unless you want to go down the Lewis Hamilton chat, then we can bite. But we're not doing that.
You don't have.
I'm trying to say, look, Shez, can we do this? I mean,
I didn't even finish. I was going to say I quite like the cut.
Oh, what were you going to say?
Well, you didn't let me finish. I quite like.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
You keep talking, so you won't let me finish. I quite like the cut of Charles's jib when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing. I thought how he handled Lando and Kota was brilliant. That was really good defensive work, and how he handled Lando in Barcelona was also lovely. I think Charles is one of the best wheel-to-wheel racers on the grid right now. But that's the kind of driver that Lando wants to be going up against. He doesn't want to be going up against Max in the midfield because I don't think that works for him. My 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, I think again we just have to wait and see what that happens, right? When that happens and how it looks like and how Mercedes look. I mean, again, think back to this race, and Charles put in a drive that I think is probably one of the best drives of the season, even if you put the results out. That Ferrari had no business being on the tail of that McLaren. And frankly, even being how many seconds behind Max, like it was like 10 or 12 seconds having an additional pit stop. So that wasn't, it wasn't just McLaren, right? And to think that a 7-time champion was struggling back there in qualifying, although he did a really good job in the race. I mean, Charles has probably, in my opinion, been the best driver of the season if you are not a championship contender, right? I mean, because obviously if you're going to think about the best drives, you're going to think of the top 3 that were competing up for a championship. But if you just objectively look at outperforming the car head and shoulders, I think that Charles probably put the best drive of the season. But there you go. And you know, here's what's there to prove it too. I mean, he beat the heck out of a 7-time champion who is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to have ever driven a car. And so the reality is just simply that.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop Ammar's abject glazing of a guy that was out qualified 5 times by his teammate and also didn't know what he was doing in Silverstone.
You said he was too polite.
Yes, sure, but he also didn't have a perfect season in the way that Max Verstappen did. Right.
We're talking about Max.
Well, you said he was the best driver.
When you remove the championship contenders out.
Yeah, interesting. One final thing that I do want to just ask you, just a quick question.
Yes or no answer.
Yeah. Should Max Verstappen have pitted once Oscar Piastri pitted in that race?
No.
Why not?
Because there would have, I mean, the whole idea behind pitting would have been to back up the pack. And I'm not sure that would have worked. I mean, that is some crazy, it's one thing and I know it's been done in the past, but it hasn't quite worked successfully. And I think at the end of the day, you just want to win the race, and it is what it is. Like they did what they could and they kept it simple. I don't think that backing them up would have made any difference. Now, I would say, had Lando gotten a 5-second penalty, which we haven't talked about really,
he shouldn't be, because
that
he
might have changed. No, I'm just saying, I agree with you. He shouldn't have got one, but had he got one, then I think that would have been a different deal, because then backing the pack up would have made it really interesting, because that would have put Lando way out of sync. I don't know where he would have been. I mean, just Shez, look at how the race went. I mean, Russell was nowhere to be found. He was like 20 seconds off Charles, and Charles had made another pit stop too. So I don't know what Mercedes came up with this race. I'm really not sure. I think they just sort of packed it in already. And you know, only Charles Leclerc was there. So if he was going to put Lando behind Charles, then McLaren always had the wild card of dropping Oscar, which they probably would have done, which they would have done. They said they would have. Zach said it before the press conference, well, in the Friday team's press conference. So I don't think that would have worked.
So I don't agree. I think that actually.
Oh wow!
I think that actually doing the pit stop was a no lose situation, because was Max in the position that Max was in, like 15 seconds up the road? Was he going to win the championship? Yes,
No.
yes or no? No, right? So if he drops back and somehow gets overtaken by Oscar, is he going to win the championship?
No.
No. So what's changed?
I think what's changed is their objective of trying to get Lando out of.
That's a rhetorical
well, but
question.
Shez, I'm trying to explain to you why they did that, which is they were not going to be able to unsettle Lando. I think this race was over for them.
I think they had but it was only over because they decided it was over. I think they had a better.
Yeah, but it was over the second McLaren, and you have to give credit to McLaren for this, Shez. The second they put those hard tires on Piastri's car, that changed everything, and they also conveniently let him go by too.
That McLaren played a great strategy, but if Red Bull could have done something, this was it, because they had nothing to lose. Where Max was, he loses the championship. If he gets overtaken by Oscar while trying to back up, which I don't think would have happened, he still loses the championship. Nothing has changed. But if by some chance he backs the pack up and Charles Leclerc goes past Lando Norris, then it suddenly becomes a slightly different question to ask.
But that wouldn't have happened either, because Charles struggled with his own tires.
Yeah.
And I think the Ferrari finally showed its ugly head, really.
If Max was able to back the pack up, I know what you're saying, but he gave himself no chance to do that by not pitting. Whereas by pitting, he at least gave. I'm not talking about Max, because it wasn't his decision. But Red Bull didn't give themselves a chance at all. You don't get points for fastest lap in 2025, unfortunately. So there you go. Anyway, we've been going on for nearly an hour now. That's it from 2025. We'll be back later in the week to do a moratorium on Ferrari, because Ammar can't wait to dig his claws into Lewis Hamilton. But this time, I'm not going to let him do it unopposed.
This time,
as usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. We'll read every single one. We'll reply to every. Oh no, we won't reply to every single one, but we will reply to as many as we possibly can. And Ammar, please stop talking. Let me finish my sentence. We'll see you guys in the next one.
I didn't say anything.
Just stop now.
Fix it, Fred.
Oh.